gig conversation, so it pretty much went like this. Yeah, actually this happened twice.
Welcome to the 5th episode of Season 2 of the Copilots, The Climb. Today I am joined by a special guest. I'm just kidding, it's Fish, as per usual. How are you doing, man?
Still pretty special, you know.
It is special.
It's not in the ways you guys might expect.
Exactly. Because today we are going to be talking about something maybe a bit more negative and maybe even scarier than what we usually talk about.
Kind of special, one might say, you know?
Listen, the haircut isn't perfect, but it's the best I could do on a 10-euro budget.
Call it a haircut?
Yes. Alright, so today we're going to be talking about the lack of originality, ingenuity, and the future of human thinking. And we're going to be talking about this in the context of artificial intelligence and human beings outsourcing a lot of our creative thinking to the Italians.
Yeah, so this whole topic originated from, I was listening to Toby's stand-up.
But it was clear that it was written by a bot, because no human being...
The lack of originality really stood out. No, in all seriousness, I'm not kidding. But yeah, AI, is used a lot in a lot of fields.
Shades were here.
It's used in pretty much anything, I would say, even,
Yeah, it is.
And coding to doing anything. Yeah. Creative, technical.
Yeah, and I think
things.
For starters, we can both say that we're not categorically against AI. I think we're both somewhat positive about the future of technology and using AI for a bunch of applications.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, no, I basically got the idea for this episode from the fact that usually when I give Fish the assignment to come up with a topic for the episode.
Wow.
I'm kidding, I'm really throwing you under the bus.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Remember, this is my episode, so I'm editing it all out. So I'm
No, don't edit any of this. This should all stay in.
Yeah,
all
exactly.
this must stay in.
That's why it's a special episode.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I mean, I hit you with your stand-up, you hit me with the originality.
Yeah,
it's all fair game,
Yeah.
It's like, how about you? How unoriginal of you.
Exactly.
Do not subscribe.
If you think you're unoriginal, unsubscribe. No, I think that more and more people tend to outsource their creative thinking over to artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
And what I kind of wanted to explore in this episode was, what are the long-term consequences of that? Is there going to be a day when human beings are simply unable to think creatively or outside the box or generate actually original ideas? Yeah. And then in the long run, could that have maybe some implications for the sciences, engineering, and just the future of humanity?
Yeah, how humans' brains work.
Yeah, exactly.
True.
And if we degenerate to a much lower level in terms of originality, then could AI maybe take over some of those more intellectual tasks from us?
Yeah, it's interesting because AI is now a word thrown around quite a lot.
Yeah.
Of course, we can look at it from just in the past, where it sort of started from. Obviously industrial revolutions.
Yeah.
You get computers, and development there is when things started to become automated, right?
Yeah.
And people then thought oh no, jobs are gonna be gone. Didn't happen. It just the main switch was people stopped doing easy stuff that just takes a while and it's redundant. NASA had human calculators before.
Yeah, exactly.
But that kind of stuff doesn't exist anymore. But you still had people who worked with calculators.
Yeah.
Who just checked, does this make sense?
Exactly.
Does it not make sense?
Yeah.
So naturally, it's just makes sense to think. It won't be a problem. It will just be a different way in which humans interact with it, whereas the roles might change.
Yeah.
Because currently, this whole thing AI currently, it's crazy and it's gonna take over the world. And for videos Sora, that's one that's actually pretty good. I haven't really used it myself. I don't know if you have.
No, I don't think so.
But the idea is you just with a sentence it can generate a minute video, and it's Hollywood level editing and graphics and stuff, and it looks real.
Yeah.
Which is pretty impressive. But so that in a way creatively, you can you can see it as like, you know, it's taken up some of that creativity.
Yeah, exactly.
But mostly in other sectors, when it comes to say technical, it's really like not that much like it's not gonna take over the world currently.
Yeah.
That's how also in the future.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the difficult tasks. Also, what I was taught in Master in Aerospace and Control, there was a course called Aerospace Human Machine Systems.
Yeah.
And there, the whole thing was, well, they started the course by saying, well, why do you want to think about humans? Because, you know, everything's going to be automated, right?
Yeah.
So that the main thing was basically AI like has its limitations, and usually people think introducing AI into the problem will make it simpler, whereas it actually makes it more complex.
Yeah, exactly.
And humans or the operators, their job becomes more difficult.
Yeah, yeah.
So it becomes more of monitoring usually than doing, which is hard for humans to have a high attention span for.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's more on the technical side or application based.
Yeah.
But maybe I don't know if you want to focus more on the creative or on the technical.
Yeah, I'm actually open to talking about both. I think the point you made about like say the STEM fields is quite interesting because I think in general, obviously, our intent would be to use AI only in places where it boosts productivity.
Yeah.
But then if you actually have to think about like how do you tinker with the data to put it in a sort of digestible format for the neural network, then indeed it becomes more complex, not only for the team of researchers, but also computationally speaking.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think like that that's very tangential to the whole big picture of the previous industrial revolutions always having yielded more jobs in the end, even though people were always sort of afraid of losing their jobs and like for the computers or industrial machines taking over. But I think realistically what we're going to have with artificial intelligence in the future is just the nature of jobs is going to change.
Yeah.
But yeah, like we're still going to need people who can do like sort of original thinking and without think without neural networks.
Yeah. Like that's definitely gonna the role will definitely change, and I think it will just get more difficult for humans to the actual tasks they have to do will get difficult. Yeah. But the idea now, like also in aviation, I'm now speaking, but also probably generally, people now are looking into or considering using technology to assist humans more instead of using humans as a backup. Yeah. Because if you use humans for monitoring, our brain is so bad at monitoring. Yeah. Like it gets lazy and tired. If you're not actively doing stuff, you're gonna sleep. Like imagine being in a lecture, 45 minutes. Yeah.
That's especially than a Copilots episode.
Okay. No, I'm not. But it's difficult because especially if you're not taking notes. That's for me helps me stay awake. So if you're doing something. So if you put that, then it's like how do we work with AI as a team member? Consider AI as a team member other than like AI does everything and humans do it. Yeah. So how can we boost where humans lack and make that efficiency even better? Yeah. That sort of seems to be the approach for technical, which is going to work or which can work.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think definitely it will get more difficult the role. Still, because humans will have to make those critical calls, like this is not going to work and that. Yeah. But this way it will help that process where humans can make the right decisions. Yeah. And it's not like a black box. But I think currently, like creatively, like AI, I wouldn't say it's very creative. Currently, if you tell it some ideas or ask it for some ideas, it gives you like a general topics. Yeah. But it's very like. You can tell it's just not that original. Yeah, exactly. Like usually you can base it on something and you can go, actually we can do it like this.
Yeah, no, like it can only reinvent the wheel, but it can't actually like think of it like, oh yeah, we can make it into a ball. Let's make it 3D. Yeah. Like that's a very human way of seeing it.
Yeah, like a perfect example I have is you can ask ChatGPT like, what kind of Mr. Beast type video can I make? And it will give you like future ideas, but it's based on what Mr. Beast has done. Exactly. But before Mr. Beast existed, it has no training data. So if you ask it, how do I become a really big YouTuber with these many subscribers? It's not going to tell you. That has to come from the human Mr. Beast itself. So for new things, for now, it's not really. It's just not how the system works. Right?
Yeah, that's fair. that being said, I feel like in the creative industries, they're just recycling a lot of like old ideas that have been sort of proven to work, at least on a conceptual level. So I don't know, if you have a spy novel or a thriller movie or an action movie, like usually you pretty much have the same pattern.
True.
And I feel like an AI could pretty much generate that exact same plots.
Yeah.
Anyways, that was a nice dinner break, but I thought it would be an interesting idea to talk a bit about crime, because as some may know us, we used to be crime fighters.
I think not a single person in the damn audience knows a damn thing about crime fighters. This was a secret between us. Now it's all over the world.
Yeah, exactly. Like, think of the headlines tomorrow.
Let's address the big elephant in the room.
Exactly.
We had an interesting past a few years ago.
Yeah.
Why not address it? You know, we're honest here.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed, as Tobias said, we were known as back in the day as the crime fighters.
The penis surgeons. Indeed, the crime fighters.
That was more of his thing.
Again, which that?
Up to your interpretation.
Exactly.
But yeah, we unlike what the name suggests, we did very much the opposite of crime fighting. How I would describe our revolutionary, stage that we set upon in life.
That being policing the world without the mandate, authority, or competence.
Crime enforcers. That was really what we did.
Exactly.
We enforced that crime was happening, so police would have responsibilities to take care of.
All right. On a serious note, what crimes do you think are the most horrific?
It's a good question. Most horrific. So my brain always goes to, okay, what is our criteria of horrific? Do we want to count in most negative societal impact in terms of deaths or in terms of, PTSD?
Pure financial cost. I'm kidding. I'm actually interested in your emotional intuition when it comes to these things. Okay. So don't try to sort of logic your way through it.
Okay, I'll use my other side of the brain.
Exactly.
Definitely have. The most horrific is horrific crime, right? Modern crime, are we talking, or all time?
Honestly, up to you.
It's not very much a crime, but I've thought about what kind of things have impacted society generally, or what things are cause the crime to happen. And from what I've seen, always in most cases, a fair bit of alcohol has been involved in societal negative consequences. Indeed. So indeed, it's not a crime, but it's a cause to crime. So it's very broad, but it's like a common root. So I wanted to mention it first. Yeah. But speaking of the crimes itself, I wouldn't say, even though it sounds bad, like robbing a bank, it's monetarily quite big, but it's not. It doesn't hurt anyone really physically. Of course, the mentally, some people were like, oh, crap, I lost all my money. But I think anywhere where it's either torture or you're physically compromised, or let's say also your values are compromised to a certain extent, I would consider one of the most horrific crimes. You've been forced to do something you don't want to do, physical or mental, etc. Whatever falls under that are pretty horrific crimes. Well, what do you think?
I think there's no worse crime than not subscribing to the Copilots.
On a serious note. Subscribe.
No, you want to.
You do.
You know, you have to.
Exactly.
But I'd say probably something pretty generic, like sexual violence, murder, even just killing. Sometimes it doesn't have to be premeditated, the definition of murder. I think that's quite horrendous. But society has sort of had very differing definitions for crime over time. I think a couple hundred years ago, this could have been considered as crime because we were going against the word of the Lord. I'm sure we've said some unholy things on this
on this episode? No. Or you mean in the podcast?
In the podcast.
Well, what kind of things do you think would be unholy? In terms of language or topics?
I think both, honestly.
Yeah, language, fair enough.
But I think there's something like a universal morality that doesn't really sort of change with the times. So I think killing has always been perceived as wrong, justly so, and so has most forms of mental and physical abuse, and basically inflicting harm on somebody that hasn't deserved it.
Yeah.
And I think that's like a pretty good general universal definition of crime.
Doesn't deserve it. What if they do deserve it, or someone believes they do deserve it?
Yeah, I mean, in my view, society should sort of have a monopoly on legal violence. Some would even argue that that's kind of the definition of a society. But how would I put it? I feel like it's always a very treacherous path in moral terms to sort of take justice into your own hands. Because like, what gives you the authority, especially if you're not like trained in law, like to assess like, oh yeah, this person hurt me in ways X, Y, and Z, therefore I can get back at them in ways A, B, and C.
Yeah. So you're saying, as a legal standpoint or societal legal standpoint, it should determine what is deserving.
Yeah.
The punishment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and not a single individual should.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like that's also an interesting conversation in the sense that like how broadly a society's like code of conduct and its morality should reflect its individual citizens' morality. Because I'm sure there's like massive differences. Like there's societies in which you have a bunch of individuals who completely disagree with the ways that the laws are set, and then there are societies where like they're quite uniform in their beliefs in terms of like right and wrong, and the state also enforces those beliefs.
Yeah, true.
I think
makes sense.
I would even make the case that for society to be just and for it to be legitimate, its laws should enjoy the I think majority will in the sense that a majority of the public supports the legal system.
Okay, yeah, of course. No, true. Otherwise, you barely have a society.
Yeah, exactly. It's anarchy.
It's anarchy, yeah. True. And yeah, it is interesting in terms of because we're talking about crime, but then also touched a bit on punishment. And yeah, who do you think should also? Well, of course, you have the legal system that classifies what a crime is. But do you think individuals should be also allowed to say, yeah, this is a crime, and yeah, and it isn't a majority that's saying this. What about those voices?
I think from a purely sort of philosophical point of view, I'd be in favor of like a constitutional democracy. So like sometimes even if you don't have majority will for something, you can still make the case that something is right and should be enforced. Because you know, if you look into history, like a couple hundred years ago, we had a bunch of societies where the majority of people would have said like, oh yeah, we should absolutely burn witches at the stake.
Right.
But that didn't make
Which
it
is
right.
wrong.
Yeah,
exactly. So of course, not always the answer is majority.
Yeah. And I think that's also an interesting sort of insight into the flaws of democracy.
Yeah. True.
At least sort of seven.
Yeah, indeed. For democracy, that's why I believe there's a difference between, of course there is, but between democracy and republic.
Yeah.
Right.
Very
Which
good point.
republic is where you're, despite the majority saying one thing, you can go against it.
Yeah.
If you have good evidence or good facts to back it up. Because of course people can be wrong even in majority, which is actually more often the case than I think most people realize.
For sure.
So it is always a difficult move to stand up against the majority belief.
Yeah.
But indeed that's sort of the difference.
Yeah, I actually have a funny anecdote on this. So I'm currently doing my bachelor thesis project, and this week we had to conduct a trade-off between different asteroids to select which asteroid we want to send our spacecraft to. And we actually ended up deciding against the majority vote winner because it seemed to be unfeasible in the end.
Yeah.
Even though it had the support of a majority. So I think that sort of highlights the difference between a pure democracy and a republic. And oftentimes I feel like you sort of need those elements of a republic to actually have a functional system, society, just a group. Honestly, it doesn't have to be a society.
True. Yeah, because it may be that in a democracy, if you just purely go off majority, later on you actually end up hurting those people that first thought, oh, we're doing the right thing.
Exactly.
But they don't really see some things, I guess.
Yeah, because I feel like democracy itself doesn't really guarantee meritocracy.
No.
And that's something that I think should sort of...
Those are separate.
Trump.
Those are definitely separate.
Yeah.
And about this question, actually, I want to ask you a follow-up question.
Feel free.
So, if you were to eradicate one type of crime from the world, right?
Yeah.
And it meant that you had to do this crime by yourself, and it would be the last time you do this, and the world would experience it, and then never again. Which crime would you choose?
I just want to clarify, so I get to choose the victim as well.
You can go into that much depth if you please. Sure, you can.
I think I'd commit murder.
Okay.
Have me on tape now.
Nice. And who was the victim you were thinking of?
Oh, I'm sure you know. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, are we going back to the crime fighters? You know,
the crime fighters coming to cinemas near you this summer.
Sequel to the Copilots of the crime fighters. It's actually the prequel.
Actually, that's true.
Historically true.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like with movies, you know, you always go back. But anyway, murder. Which one? Is that how you would go? And then there would be no more murder.
I think so.
Okay. Murder generally, or specific type of murder, like manslaughter, or just playing on
maybe infanticide,
purposeful.
femicide.
Okay.
Not that I don't sympathize for innocent men who also get murdered at an alarming rate somewhere in the world. But I mean, if I obviously can classify it as broadly as I can, then I think that would sort of have the maximal impact.
Fair enough.
But I just choose like a horrendous dictator and I'd murder them. I heard Modi said something cool about AI. Let's talk about dictators.
But what if then some person who is really bad in society really thinks this guy is the worst, but literally murders can no longer happen? Yeah,
I think that's a really valid concern. But then again, if you think about the most horrendous dictators in history, like they've rarely been murdered, but they've usually been beaten by other means.
No, true.
And oftentimes they've sort of suicided themselves.
Fair. To this argument, there's also, I guess you could have a counter saying that they can no longer kill anyone as well. Yeah. So their worst crime that they could possibly commit, of course, debatable. Yeah. That one of their big ones they can no longer commit, so it's fine if we don't kill them.
Exactly.
So they lose their power, in a way.
I'm just curious, what do you actually think about the death penalty? Ties together here.
Yeah, it's I know a lot of countries have now abolished it. Yeah. There are some countries who still have it active. I do believe that individuals, despite of what they have done, usually deserve a second chance. Usually, and it should be really considered carefully. Who this person is that we, as a society or as a country, decide should no longer live. Which is quite a big statement, of course, but I do believe it there are some cases where it is good reasoning for this to happen. That's how I think of it.
It's very valid in my view. Like, the thing is, I think the European Union, for example, it has abolished the death penalty in all of its member states. And in general, I guess the enlightened European in me is kind of aligned with that. But I feel like that sort of feeds into the fundamental question of like, why does anyone enforce laws in a society, and why do we have a mechanism to punish people, mainly via imprisonation nowadays? And what I think is kind of happening with the death penalty, for example, is that obviously it's not a way to rehabilitate anyone into the society, but I feel like punishment is sort of also a way for a society to enforce its own
morals, yes,
and sort of a bloodthirst and this sense of justice. So I feel like punishment sort of serves two very distinct purposes. One of them being rehabilitation, but the other one actually sort of taking care of the moral side of things, as in, I'm sure the victims' families, whenever there's a serious crime, want something really bad to happen to the person that has committed the crime against their loved one.
Yeah.
And I think for a society to hold legitimacy in the eyes of its public, you should sort of have this sort of democratically endorsed bloodthirst legalized, at least to some extent.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can even mean something really crude like the death penalty. In very extreme cases, obviously.
Yeah. This, of course, relating to very extreme individuals. But yeah, I agree. It's like a sense of like, it's a lot of feeling, it's a lot of emotion. Which I think generally society tends to be like less of that. Of course, humans are not, like, laws are written very much objectively usually, but humans are also humans. It's not just papers.
We're not rational people.
So true. So, but it's also, I guess, a sense of fulfillment in a way that humans feel when someone has been, deserves punishment and has been given that.
Exactly.
Blessed with the punishment. But
exactly.
I do think it's a human thing that we strive for that or want that.
And we sort of crave revenge if somebody hurts us or our loved ones.
Yeah, for sure. And I wonder if it's like some aliens, they might operate differently. They might not even care about it.
Yeah, exactly.
But for us, it's important, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
If I were to answer which crime I would eradicate,
please do.
It would be.
I was going to ask that.
Yeah. Perjury. Perjury.
Yeah.
Perjury.
And why so?
Because lying in court, right? If I just lie in court once, it's the easiest. I don't have to kill anyone.
That's true.
By the way, you do have to kill someone.
Yeah, that's true.
But perjury, I just lie in court about the tiles were not white, they were blue.
Okay.
And then if that means no one can lie anymore, then the jurisdiction system is very much valid. And people can lie a lot less in court, which is the place where most of the problems can be solved. And then then you have a really good if statement.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's a really interesting take on it, though.
Yeah. But I did look this up before, I knew of this question before, so I did see that this was a good response. It's not my completely original one.
Yeah, no worries.
But I do like it. I do like.
Do you think lying is then the most fundamental flaw in our society, or just a society?
So no, but the way we set up our legal system puts a big trust on this truth and lie, because once you step on the court, you have to take the promise or the swear or the oath, whatever you call that. I will not lie in the court. But people lie in the court. So that's sort of the thing that's related to it. Like, court is really good, but sometimes you don't have good evidence. You're obviously missing some strands. And these strands are usually missing because the person is lying or isn't fully telling the truth, etc. So if they were just not allowed to do that, especially in court, then the legal system would be just much more valid. That's what I would say.
In the words of Orwell, in a time of deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. And I believe that is a perfect closing note for our episode today.
Thank you very much for listening. And with that in mind, I'd like to say that we're soon reaching 1 million subscribers in about 2 days.
It is insane.
It is insane. We're fast and not lying.
Thank you for tuning in. And as you know, this has been the Copilots signing out.
Nice.
That was good.
GG.